Welcome to WBC Faster Together, the LinkedIn Live series of Women Business Collaborative. I'm Gwen Young, CEO of WBC. WBC is an unprecedented alliance of over 80 organizations focused on advancing diverse leadership across business and hundreds of business leaders, building a movement to achieve equal position, pay, and power for all women in business. Through collaboration, advocacy, action, and accountability, we are mobilizing thousands to create momentum and accelerate the pace of change. WBC lives its commitment to DEI, and members of our leadership, our staff, board of directors, our WBC champions include more than 34% people of color. And every single one of our 4 action initiatives has DEI goals for 2025 and 2030. So please check the chat for our action initiatives through which we aim to accelerate change, and join our movement at wbcollaborative.org. So each week in this series, we offer different ways to advocate change and accelerate impact by presenting data, research, and best practices, by lifting up the power of women's voices for change, and by showcasing leaders committed to allyship, inclusivity, and driving corporate purpose across the business landscape. So today I'm excited to be joined by 2 incredible leaders in the WBC community. The first is Maryann Pagano, who is the CEO of Blackhawk Data, and Holly Anenking is the Chief Marketing Officer for Bolster. And our conversation today is going to focus on how we create an organizational strategy that prioritizes the needs and expectations of customers, whether those are individuals or whether those are businesses. And as we all know today, it's really important that companies have a deep understanding of their customers and clients as we navigate the challenging world in which we live, right? And integrating this knowledge into the operations and strategy will allow an organization to gain a unique competitive advantage in the marketplace. And there's an IT, basis and component of learning who your customers and clients are and integrating with them. So we have 2 people who are both IT experts and work with IT platforms. So Maryann and Holly, welcome.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Thank you.
So why don't we set the stage? So each of you work with customers and clients in a different way based on your business, whether that's Bolster or Blackhawk Data. So what does a customer-centric strategy look like for your organization? And how do you ensure that inclusion is at the forefront of your commitment to both internal and external stakeholders? Maryann, why don't we start with you?
Sure. For me, I come from a customer service background. So I spent 20 years as a sales support person supporting my customers. So for me, it's really important to take that knowledge and experience and work with the team and make sure that they're doing the same thing, right? The client is the most important thing for us. We're all pretty much B2B. So our client is what drives our business, what keeps us going. And there's such a great amount of satisfaction that comes from customer satisfaction. And I tell my staff all the time, it's super important to make sure that you pick up the phone, that you get on a WebEx with them. They visually see the authenticity, the realness of who you are. So that's so important to the customer experience because there's so many of us in the channel. We have to separate ourselves from everybody else. And that goes to customer service, customer first. And being inclusive, right? Making sure that we invite everybody into our world and we hire in that way because everyone's opinions are different.
That's fantastic. Holly, talk a bit about what Bolster does and how that is at the forefront of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so for Bolster, we are an executive search platform that combines recruiters with technology in order to speed up the search process, but also be able to bring more diverse slates of candidates to opportunities. And for us, when I'm thinking about, being customer-centric, we are using the customer as a litmus test for the work that we're trying to do. Is it solving the customer's problems? Is it helping them be more successful, find the right people for their team, move their business forward? If it's not checking those boxes, then we need to be thinking differently about how we're spending our time, how we're spending our resources. And for us, we think about this customer-centric strategy, not just as a go-to-market strategy or just a customer retention strategy. It has to be really holistic. It has to be every part of what it is that you're doing, and everyone has to be super aligned on what that looks like, so that we can meet our customers where they are and really bring that value for them. As Maryann was saying, you can't get that customer satisfaction if you're not showing up in the ways that they need you to show up for them. So it's less about you and what you need and more about them and what they need and how you can plug in order to make their lives a little easier, help them do what they're trying to do a little faster, a little cheaper, a little better.
And how do you do that? And Maryann, I think you alluded this too, is sort of that customer focus and then sort of the employee engagement, right? Those are the 2 communities, and you need to sort of get both of those engaged and bought in and have that commitment to inclusivity in the holistic way that Holly spoke about as well.
Well, I think for us too, what we teach everyone is, right, we want to be not just someone that's selling the customer something, right? We want to build relationships, right? You can't build a relationship without that in person, that on the phone, that virtual, right? That meet and greet, that getting to get to know you. And we teach everyone that, right? It's a lot to get a client. It takes a lot of effort from my team and my side of the house to bring in the client. So we have to make sure that that's fostered throughout the organization, right? From me all the way on down, right? If I'm handing a project over, if I'm handing a professional services engagement over, if someone's collecting on an invoice, right? You all have to have that same exact mentality and knowing that that client is so important to you and to the business and your reputation, and you're building your own brand, right? To build their own brand around it and to stick to the same values that we have. And we repeat those values every quarter during QBRs and making sure that we're checking the box all the time for people, and even on new hires, making sure that we're bringing new hires in that meet those same values to give the customers what they want.
And Holly, I'd love to hear that as well too, as you're looking at candidates and you're trying to match them with the culture, but you're that commitment to inclusivity because it's two-sided, and that's what people are looking for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. For us, we have both the clients that we're thinking about and the candidates. We want both of those people to have a really great experience because that's what's going to set, the client up for success and keep the candidate engaged long term and hopefully, a good fit for that business. Going back to what Maryann was saying about having values that are really driving the work that you're doing, one of our core values is around transparency. That's for both the clients and the customers, having lots of communication about where we are, how things are going, what's working, what's not working, how can we recalibrate. What's making someone a good fit, what's making someone not a good fit, how do we adjust around that along the way. And remembering too that especially on the candidate side, they're not just names in a database or behind a resume, like there's real people on the other side of it. And making sure that we are really investing time and energy in building the relationships, being on the phone, being face-to-face where we can, really helps get to a place where people are feeling comfortable, we're making decisions quickly and collaboratively, and getting to really good outcomes on both sides of the equation.
Yeah, Maryann, I think we were talking right before and we get on too, and about it sort of everybody on your team. Like it's sort of every point in the process, it's that ability to have that personal connection, pick up the phone and talk about that, right?
Yeah, and you're building your own brand. I mean, I went from being a support person to CEO overnight, right? So the only way to do that is to use your brand, right? If your brand is strong, you can bring people with you, whether you want to be a CEO one day, never on my radar, but it happens, right? Or what you want to be a VP, whatever. Your brand is what's going to carry you to your next phase in your life. And you got to keep your brand going, make your brand strong. And that includes being inclusive, right? You want to make sure that you're bringing everybody in, right? Or everybody into your world. And there shouldn't be a picking and choosing of who. Women, we are a minority, right? So we want to make sure that we're bringing everybody in and not separating anybody out.
Absolutely. And I think in both cases too, from the candidate, we talk a lot, as you both know at WBC, about those pipeline, right? And whether you're recruiting or whether you're, working with customers and looking, there's like, and especially even in the tech sector specifically, there's always like, where are the women or where is the diversity? And our answer is always it's there, right? So there's an intentionality behind it. But what are you guys seeing happening with that pipeline and that commitment? Because on the flip side, you hear the younger generations also looking for values and alignment and commitment.
Yeah, I would say from my perspective, especially when it comes to pipeline of talent and developing future leaders, it really requires investment from the leadership top down in identifying people who have potential to grow into bigger, broader roles within the business, and then putting in the time to get them mentors, get them coaches, create leadership training. I myself am a perfect example of that in action. I was really grateful that at Return Path, a business I was at previously, which is now the team behind Bolster, that they put a lot of time and energy into identifying talent, getting them mentors, putting them through trainings that they had developed. And that's the only reason that I'm in a position where I am today as a CMO. I wouldn't have had that opportunity if they hadn't put in a lot of intentional time and effort to build up a group of future leaders and give them the tools and resources they needed to grow into that.
For me, it's a pay it forward, right? I spent a long time in the IT channel, right? Taking care of my clients, my vendors, my business partners. When I needed somebody, when I woke up with no job, no money, no nothing, right? I needed them to pay it forward to me. And then my job now is to pay it forward to others, right? And to coach other people wanting to come into, whether it's technology or something else, right? I do early women in tech. I invite people in. I tell them, the men, bring your kids, give them a chance to meet other people. And like you said, find those mentors. I didn't have that many choices, right? I want to be a choice for somebody else today.
No,
I think.
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the other thing that's important too, even within a leadership team or with any team within the business, step one is having diversity around the table. Step two is making sure that the people around the table really have an opportunity to use their voice. It's not just enough to give them a seat. You have to really empower them to share their perspectives, be heard, feel like they're a contributing member of that group. And I think that's where we sometimes feel like, well, I'm here, but like I can't get a word in. No one, like I'm never getting, an opportunity to speak. And it made even harder by being in remote environments. It can be really intimidating to try and, crack in and get your voice heard when it's a whole bunch of people on a Zoom. It's not as easy as when you're in the room and you have body language. And so as leaders, when you have diverse teams, being thoughtful and being self-critical about, is everyone really being heard? Am I doing my best to make sure that all of the opinions that I have invited into this conversation are actually a part of the conversation?
No, it's really hard. And so when we think about that, we've spoken to you about, and we speak a lot in the WBC community about like what can organizations do to build their teams, to build that sort of leadership commitment. So there's the intentionality. It's, you guys talked a little about mentorship, allyship. What are some of the other kind of, key things you can do to build, teams within that are customer centric and employee centric at the same time?
Holly, what you said is true, right? It's a lot easier if you're in a room, especially in my world. I'm in a room with 20, 30 people. I'm usually the only woman in the room. It's much harder to get in a conversation. But I think and I know people love the remote, and I'm not saying hybrid's not a good thing, but I think you need to be present, right? Because if you're going to turn to somebody and give someone a promotion, a raise, or ask for their suggestion and get to know them better, you're going to turn to the person down the hallway from you because they're going to be there and be present. And I think being absent all the time, I think creates a problem. And I think that they learn from each other when they're in person, like today, Tuesday, yesterday, we're all in the office. We're all sharing, collaborating, and building a collaborative environment, which benefits the client.
Yeah, everything is so relationship focused that, as great as being remote is, I have 2 young kids. I love having the flexibility of being from home, but being in person is also really great for building relationships across the business. But in marketing, I'm working really closely with finance, with product, with customers, with sales, all of those pieces. Those relationships are important to me in order to make me successful and to make them successful. And also for our clients, like you want to work with people that you have a good relationship, that you trust, that you're able to cultivate that investment in one another. And that's done so much more easily when you're able to be in person or even on the phone, like having a conversation. Zoom can be a really sort of weird place to be sometimes. And so finding other ways to get connected to people and to cultivate those relationships is really important to prioritize, and having people in the business who are invested in that, who are willing to maybe get out of their comfort zone, pick up the phone when they don't want to, make some of that effort can be really important. I am guilty of that as well. I'm right on the verge of like, I don't always love the phone, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Well, answering the phone too, right? How many people don't answer the phone if it's a number they do not recognize, right? Which then it makes it that makes that communication that much harder when your intention was to be inclusive and to feel that and to do that, right? We talk a lot about trust too within kind of what we do about creating that trust between the leadership, the trust between the colleagues. Maryann, you're nodding about how important that is, right?
It's one of our core values, right? And I think I hear it all the time. The reason why people like us and work with us is they trust me. I built a trust in my brand, right? And that's a big piece of it because there's got to be trust. I work with a lot of competitors on a daily basis because as a woman-owned business, I work with a lot of non-women-owned businesses, a lot non-minorities, and they need to be able to trust people, right? Trust is such a huge factor. I mean, I had to let people go out of lack of trust, of lack of being able to understand, are they working? Are they somewhere? I haven't seen them in a week. What are they really doing? Trust is such a huge piece of your brand and who you are. If you're untrustworthy, my industry is big, but boy, is it small when you're untrustworthy.
That is such a good point. So one of the ways we always end this, anything we do with WBC is that call to action, right? So why, and I know you both have been thinking about this because this is how we roll, how we work, right? But what is your call to action? And I think I'd love to hear both from kind of organizations, but also, we're getting some few comments in the chat about, the culture of inclusivity, brand, your reputation, right? Even maybe for the audience as well. I don't know who wants to start.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in. I would say, if you're thinking about talent in your business, it's something you don't have to do alone. Um, Finding partners, a partner like Bolster or some other group who can come in and help you think about how you are building up your team, what your long-term and short-term talent strategy looks like, how you're finding coaches or creating programming to help leaders. It's not something that you as a CEO, as a leadership team have to do alone in a vacuum. There are resources and groups out there that can help you do that and have experience thinking, finding talent more broadly, tapping into broader networks, using technology like we do at Bolster to, find talent that you may not have in your own network. And so rather than trying to do the work to maybe DIY a talent strategy or find an executive, there are great resources out there that can help you do that. And so Bolster can be a resource from that perspective. And I encourage you to check us out.
Love that. Maryann.
I think for me, it's finding mentors, being a mentee, different things that you can do, building your network, using your network, find places where you can go. And I always go back to this Women in Tech thing that I created where it was first just on a 15-minute, 20-minute webinar, and then it turned into a virtual in-person and hybrid event where people get to meet people and find someone that they can attract themselves to, where they feel they have some commonalities and use them as a mentor or a mentee. I do it all the time in my spare time. I mentor wherever I can. And I think people need to do that more with each other. I hear so many women say, we need to do more together, but so many don't. So I think you need to really put yourself out there, mentor each other, let men mentor you, you mentor a man. It doesn't make a difference who you're mentoring, but I think that you have to reach out and really believe what you want to do and continue to push to do it, because you want to be that real person that feels that mentoring and inclusivity is real to you, and you have to live and breathe by it. And that's kind of what I try to do every day.
Live and breathe that. And I talk a lot too, and I'm sure you do, Maryann. My question, you don't have to be, later on in your career to mentor somebody.
No.
You can be at any point in your career, right? You can mentor. And I always say, look across groups. Don't just be necessarily in one group, but look across, whoever it is and wherever it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love when someone calls it with this, hey, I watched you on LinkedIn. Do you mind having coffee? I just got into the industry. I have some questions about what you would do if you were in my spot. And that's the best feeling in the world, because if you can encourage just one person every time you talk, that's enough for you, right? You've done your job.
Yeah, one thing.
Go ahead, Holly.
As I say, one thing that we do at Bolster that I really love and think is an interesting approach is every person in the business, from the CEO down, has a mentor who is also in the business. So everyone is paired up. There's a selection process where you get to get paired up with people, and you have someone internal to the business to start building that sort of mentor-mentee relationship, especially if you're someone who hasn't had a mentor before and you're not quite sure how to leverage someone in that way, what that looks like, or you have not mentored someone before. It's a great way to start flexing that muscle and getting used to it and just building relationships across the business. But it is a really nice way to get people connected across the business and start building that sort of spirit of collaboration and mentorship, and right from day one.
I love that. Mentorship also builds trust. It's all interconnected, from intentionality to all of it. That is actually all we have time for. So thank you both. This was wonderful, and we got some comments in the chat about the appreciation for the points, and we thank everyone. So join wbcollaborative.org to learn more about our initiatives, which are to increase women in the C-suite and boardroom, to address the underrepresentation of women in STEM, and even the available capital for women, and to advance a pipeline of women leaders that are going to be gender, pay equity, diversity, equity, inclusion to the business landscape. So join us weekly to keep up to date, and the movement for gender equality in business and our latest issues by following us on social media at WB Collaborative on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Happy Thursday, and